Hey guys, welcome back to Franchise Tagged. Today we're going over the franchise tags, baby. Let's go. Uh, so we're going to be going over all the players that got tagged this year with the franchise tag, some of their impacts on their teams, some things we may predict on what's going to happen if they're going to, have some contract extension talks, or if this tag is like a one and done type of deal. Uh, Obviously, all hypothetical because nothing is set in stone. But first, we just want to go over the rules of the franchise tag, what it actually is, the different types of it, and some of the different caveats. So, first up is the exclusive franchise tag, which is what a team can place on a player to keep them on their team no matter what. That is a re-signed contract for the next 1 year, and that contract's value is the average of the top 5 salaries at the player's position during that current year, or 120% of that player's previous salary, whichever number ends up being higher. So if that player was already a top 5 paid player at their position and they got a franchise tag placed on them, it would be 120% of their previous salary, basically. Um, and then the next type is the non-exclusive franchise tag, and that is one where the player can sign other contracts with other teams, but the team that tagged the player has a chance to match. If they do not choose to match, the team that signs the player owes that original team 2 first-round picks. The compensation for this tag is less than the exclusive tag. It is the average of the top 5 salaries at the player's position over the last 5 years, or the 120% of the player's previous salary, whichever is higher, once again. The third type is the transition tag. So this is essentially just the non-exclusive tag without the 2 first-round draft picks being handed back if the player elects to sign elsewhere, and with a lower uh, compensation for the contract. So it's still, hey, you can go negotiate with other teams, you can sign a contract, we can choose to match the contract, but if we do not choose to match the contract, nothing happens other than you go sign with that other team. Other team doesn't owe us any draft picks, nothing like that happens. And the compensation offered is the average of the top 10 salaries at that player's position, or again, 120% of his salary from last year, whichever is higher.
Now that you're done reading all the research I did, you want to get into the actual franchise tags that happened?
I would love nothing more. All right. So first off, just real quick, we are not doing this in any sort of specific order of when it happened. The order is off of alphabetical for the teams. So first up, we have the Bears franchise tagging Jalen Johnson with the non-exclusive tag, worth 19.8 million. As far as we know, they are still working on a contract extension, and it could be finalized as soon as within the next week or so. He's been really, really good this past season. He kind of had a breakout year this year, which makes contract extensions tough when it's the final year of your rookie contract and you're having a breakout year. So the Bears go into the season thinking, okay, he's playing at this level. This is the level of contract we're offering him, when really he plays at this level and expects this level of contract. Um, so the expectation, I think, was even that they were going to not have to use the tag on him and that they would get a deal done before the tag deadline, but they didn't. So
This just kind of extends that window for them to work on that contract extension. And they were feeling really good about the extension, even just like a few days prior to now. As of recording, it is the deadline day. It's March 5th. So I'm not at all really doubting if he'll be a long term extended there, especially with his play. It's really just the money that they're working on right now. Next up is T. Higgins, who was the Bengals non exclusive tag. His cap hit for that tag is going to be $21.8 million. And I say that even if they don't work on a long term extension, keeping him around for this 1 year kind of deal is good for the team because they'll have a healthy Joe Burrow, they'll have a healthier T. Higgins, hopefully, and pair them up with Jamar Chase and possibly an added wide receiver to fill the gap of Tyler Boyd. And you can have a team that's still caliber to make playoffs, still able to make those deep runs and be the Mahomes killers while not being long term committed to T. Higgins. You still have the shot at the Super Bowl with T. Higgins, I think that that's kind of like their perfect case, and maybe even T. Higgins, because he would come off of that and be like, okay, well, I just got paid 22 mil, but I'm still playing really good, and I had a year now where I wasn't hurt for this past season, and I get to be fully healthy entering free agency and get the bag that I feel I'm worthy of, which he is worthy of one as a near wide receiver one caliber guy for most teams.
The Panthers would throw a wide receiver one bag at him for sure if he entered free
Easily.
agency this
Yeah.
year. Um, Next up on the list, we've got the Buccaneers placing their non-exclusive tag on Antoine Winfield Jr. It is worth 17.1 million, and my really in-depth analysis on him is that he threw up the peace sign on Tyreek that one time.
Yeah. I think the other in-depth analysis is that this tag means that Baker's hitting free agency, so they must be really confident in Baker coming back. Like they must be real cordial on that, because I feel like with how Baker played, he should have been the one to get the tag if maybe they were super far apart on like where they were at player to franchise. I feel like they must be kind of close if they're using it on Antoine, and they were like, okay, we're further from getting this extended with Antoine than we are with Baker, but Baker is the one that's going to hit FA. I feel like they wouldn't risk Baker hitting FA, but who knows at this point? They pick late enough in the draft where they're not going to have a top quarterback. Who knows what they're doing right now with that?
Yeah, I do know that they've had some expectation that Baker returns, and especially with re-signing Mike Evans as well, bringing him back. I think Baker would want to return in this scenario rather than like somebody on the defense who may just want a bag that they could throw a slight tag at and keep him around for a little bit.
Yeah. Next up is the Chiefs with L'Jarius Sneed. He got the non-exclusive tag, which is 19.8 million, the same as Jalen Johnson, and they even gave him the okay to seek out other teams to drum up the trade discussions. So I feel like even if they're not going to go the route of like, okay, well, we're going to make them match, like we're going to make them offer you a contract and then give us 2 first-round picks. I think they're flexible enough where they might not need the 2 first-round picks to trade him. It might just be like, okay, we want 2 seconds or whatever the bar is for them, and they'll send him off to go get paid by that other team. But I feel like this extension wasn't so much because they were, or this tag rather, wasn't so much because they were far from an extension. I think that they're pretty far. So they just want to maximize any capital they can get from him, as opposed to like, okay, well, we're going to meet your ask. We're going to pay you what you want for this many years kind of deal.
Yeah. And it is a little bit cheaper than that exclusive tag that would have meant that he's 100% traded instead of just, give me the 2 firsts, right? Next up on the list, we've got the Colts with their non-exclusive tag on Michael Pittman Jr. That tag has the same value as T. Higgins at $21.8 million. And he played this past season with 2 quarterbacks, Anthony Richardson and Gardner Minshew, and still posted 1,100 yards and had a really effective year. So I do think that they want to keep him around, especially for the development of Anthony Richardson. But I think he kind of expects wide receiver 1 money. And I don't know if I would consider him to be like a high-end wide receiver 1. I think he's more of like a mid-range wide receiver 1, but he's performing at the level that he probably expects wide receiver 1 money. But I would kind of classify him as this, like if T. Higgins was a wide receiver 1, I think he and Michael Pittman would be in probably pretty similar
it's like
territory.
he's wide receiver 1 on some teams, and some teams he's a wide receiver 2. Just depends on the caliber of 1 that they have. Next up is the Jaguars, who spent their non-exclusive tag on Josh Allen. He has a $24 million hit, and I really hope that they tag this because they are going to hit any ask that anyone even brings to them, because he generated 96 pressures last season with the second most in the league. And I feel like they might just try to do this in a way to like, all right, we don't have the money right now. Like, we don't have the space right now. We're prepping for a Trevor Lawrence extension, but we can't pay you like the Nick Bosa deal. We can't pay you these $30+ million deals while we have that pending. So we're going to get this. And if anyone is able to pay you immediately the money that you want, we'll take the 2 first-round picks,
Yeah.
because that is a number we can't hit right now. But let's extend you. Let's give ourselves some flexibility with this deal on how we can make your cap work for us as we kind of work through this and see what we can do. Another implication from this is that they had to cut corner Darius Williams and safety Rayshawn Jenkins to make the cap space for this tag to be placed. So I feel like now they're kind of hurting themselves. They're if they lose Josh Allen, they're going to need those 2 first-round picks because they've effectively lost 3 players on defense. So that's not their route that they want to go, but it's at least that non-exclusive gives them some payback for if anything were to happen, while not hitting him with the higher pay mark of an exclusive tag.
Yeah.
And then next up is someone in a similar boat, Brian Burns for the Panthers. $24 million tag, same for him as it was Josh Allen, a non-exclusive. And he reportedly was offered a $27 million deal for 5 years, and he declined it because he wants closer to Nick Bosa level of money. So again, it's another instance of like, okay, they're wanting like 30 mils. They want like these top of the market money. And the Panthers have the money to do that, but they, for some reason, just keep thinking that they can get away with like giving him pennies and being like, yeah, that's how we're going to play this, because they declined a trade at the deadline last season with the Rams, who offered them 2 first-round picks and a second for him. And instead, they are showing him like, okay, you're more worth it to us than 2 firsts and a second, but we want to pay you like you're not. And there's a huge disconnect there for Burns versus them. So I don't see anyone kind of being the guys to go out and spend 30 million on Brian Burns and trading 2 firsts for him. You're losing too much at that point. And it's kind of the same with Josh Allen. But if a team does want to lose that much for them, then the Panthers will take that. It's just a really lose situation for Brian Burns because he's kind of hyped up so much, but also they're undervaluing him against their own hype.
Yeah, I mean, clearly there was a team that wanted to send 2 firsts for him, so maybe the Rams will, throw him a bag and then give up those 2 firsts again. Maybe given the opportunity a second time to keep that second round pick they offered, they could throw those 2 firsts. But yeah, next up on the list we've got the Patriots, who placed the transition tag on Kyle Duggar, which again, it's the non-exclusive tag with no first round pick compensation if he signs elsewhere. And that tag was only worth $13.8 million. I would really like to see them give him a bag and give him a big extension and have this just be, hey, we're going to give you your bag. Just hold on for 2 minutes and give us a couple more days, a couple more weeks to work this out. But I think the biggest implication of this tag is that Mike Onwenu is hitting free agency. And as a team that has an offensive line problem, losing your best offensive lineman is not good. So unless you are confident that he's going to come back or confident that you have another option in free agency, then I don't know why they would do this. So I'm hoping that either Onwenu's back or we get somebody like Tyron Smith or something like that in free agency.
Hey, Joe Alt's always on the board at 3.
Oh my God, no.
Another thing for this is I think that like it might just be, okay, we want to he wants to test free agency, and they're like, okay, we'll see what the value you get is because we want you here, but we want you to, be able to hit whatever the market value is, and we'll match it because we want you to feel like you're getting paid what you're worth without undermining it too much,
If that was the situation, though, I feel like they would have talked about it and he would have just been like, okay, I'm going to go into free agency, tell you my offers, and then you match that and I'll sign with you. And you can use the tag on Onwenu so you can keep him. But
I think
maybe
transition tag is more so like it's that situation, but like, you can't wait forever when free agency starts. If he starts hearing offers and you got a week and you're a weekend and they need to make that signing to fill a spot, then they're going to have to.
Yeah.
And then the last tag of this season is the Ravens with Justin Matabuki. Non-exclusive for him, $22.1 million tag. and he had a breakout year as well. So it kind of feels like a Jalen Johnson kind of moment. Same for the Ravens, especially with how the Ravens defense played as a whole. I wouldn't expect them to be wanting to see him leave, so they put that in an exclusive on him because when you have a player who, from the interior of the D line, led the league in pressures, like with 38, which is, I mean, I think Chris Jones had 21. So this is a large jump from Chris Jones at like, I think he was third ranked in interior D line pressures to Matabuki. And he's someone that you want. Like they're gonna work on that extension. They're still working on it. They wanted that extra time to really solidify it and make him a cornerstone of the defense.
Yeah. I think that's just gonna just about do it for us here talking about the franchise tag. This just kind of felt like a video that had to happen. We are the
Yep.
franchise tagged podcast and franchise tagged in general, and the franchise tags just happened.
Mhm.
So definitely felt like a must do. We'll probably do something similar to this next year. But yeah, let us know your thoughts on your squad if they did franchise tag somebody, if you think they made the right move, or if they didn't, if they should have. Um,
Yep. Let us
and
know if there's anyone leaving your squad that you're like, why didn't the team spend their tag on this?
yeah,
Just kind of all these scenarios coming down the wire as this new league year is about to hit and free agency is about to open. Whole lot of exciting stuff going on. So stay in touch too. We're going to be having a lot of videos come out as we kind of get through this off season into draft period.
yes, sir. Y'all have a good one.
Deuces.
Deuces.